Travis Wingoodsell here, still laughing about Devin the Cow Nunes, who's having a cow right now as he's been exposed as a Russian agent. Yes, when you give aid and comfort to the enemy, you are one of the enemy. You are a traitor to your country, but you're an enemy of the people. And so yes, Devin Nunes has been caught, and so yeah, last night he showed up on Fox crying, "Oh, I'm gonna sue CNN." It wasn't CNN who first covered it. Oh man. So yeah, Devin Nunes is busted. He needs to quit. He can't be allowed to vote. He's in the case. And so, Mormons, this is for you though. And so I hope you've been learning your lesson. You didn't listen when Michael Cohen warned all of you Republicans and said, hey, don't do what I did. Trump will take you down. And you'll be just like me, going to federal prison. So, yeah, nobody's listening, nobody's caring, and everybody's dropping like flies. So, now Mormons, remember that guy who started this organization called the Mormons, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? What was his name? Joseph Smith. Obviously, we all know this, right? Remember how all the scriptures that talked about the Constitution is, divinely inspired, and we need to give loyalty to the Constitution and support it and uplift it, hold it as a banner to the world, because in the future time there will be the Constitution hanging by a thread. Sound familiar? It's been quoted in different ways, but it all comes from Joseph Smith. He was talking about a future time in America where the Constitution will be in jeopardy. How? Why? Is it because the Constitution will allow abortion? No! Or it'll place science over religion? No! No. The Constitution will hang by a thread because of what was in the Book of Mormon. Remember? Book of Mormon? The official doctrine of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Get your copy today and see the missionaries and get recruited and pay your money to the church. Which was not in the original intention of Joseph Smith. That was a Brighamite thing. But yeah, the Book of Mormon. Remember the whole story of Captain Moroni and his title of liberty? In defense of our lives, our wives, our women, our children, our country, etc., etc. No, the Book of Mormon goes against polygamy on three separate occasions. So yes, Joseph Smith was very against polygamy. And so all this talk, and even the church claiming that Joseph was a secret polygamist, is all false. It's all lies. And the reason why is because he was murdered by those who took over his church. And we're getting into that. So, yeah, kingmen. That's who Captain Moroni had to go up against, because Pahoran was not giving money to Captain Moroni and his troops to fight the war against the Lamanites. Oh, he wasn't giving money to Ukraine? But, yeah, and so Captain Moroni sends a scathing letter, "How dare you betray our people," and blah blah blah, "and I will come there and kill you myself." And then Pahoran says, "I hope I'm under attack by the kingmen who are trying to overthrow the kingdom of the Nephites. Otherwise I'd be out there helping support you." So Captain Moroni has to leave the war, take an army back to the Nephite capital, and arrest and murder all of the kingmen in order to defend the Nephites from the Lamanite invasion. Kingmen. Kingmen, kingmen, kingmen. That's the whole message of the Book of Mormon, is don't put a king on the throne. King Mosiah gives up the kingdom, creates the reign of the judges. And what does he talk about? He talks about the corruption of kings and why he can't have kings anymore for the Nephites. And, it goes into, I think it's Mosiah 29, if I'm remembering correctly. But talks about a wicked king, like King Noah is his reference, will surround himself with people who will protect him, and he corrupts everybody around him. He corrupts the people, because if he's corrupt, then the people get hurt financially, and so then they're forced, in order to survive, become corrupt themselves. The whole Les Miserables. And so that's the message of the Book of Mormon. That's why Joseph was promoting the Constitution. The laws of Mosiah were the Constitution for which the reign of the judges were to judge the people by. The Constitution. That's the whole message that was being put forth by the Smiths and the Book of Mormon. And yes, I know critics who are watching this. Yes, look at it, step back. We'll put the pieces together. You know my other works, so you know what I'm talking about here. It wasn't prophecy or anything like that. It was William Morgan who warned the Yorkites, Masons, in 1826 about this threat to America. And back then, the threat called themselves the Illuminati. And they've gone into different groups here and there over time as they get exposed, and so then they have to go underground, and then they infiltrate another organization and rise to power and continue their works through different organizations. KKK, after the Civil War, for example, that was the Illuminati infiltrating the KKK organization. And now white supremacy all over the world is now the Illuminati. So yes, the Illuminati still exists. They're not some figment of people's imaginations. They were a real organization, and they have one intention: to overrun the world and destroy it. But with America, it was different than the rest of the world. America was a new government wanting to do away with the monarchy of England, and they established a constitution. Sound familiar, Mormons? And so 1800, the Illuminati made an attempt to attack America. 1812, the newest Illuminati member and new founder of the family organization, Nathan Rothschild, funded the British Navy as they had the War of 1812 here in America and burned down the White House and other buildings in 1812 in D.C. And so, yes, William Morgan came from that war in 1812 and had obtained information from the Scottish Rites lodges. He learned of a secret infiltration into their lodges by the Illuminati. And they were going to rise up in prominence and then take over government positions and eventually the presidency, and establish a king again on the throne for America, to do away with the Constitution. That's why Joseph Smith wrote the Book of Mormon as he did. So for you critics, that's why it's plagiarized, specifically encoded to warn about the threat to turn America back into a monarchy. It had nothing to do with all this weird nonsense of Illuminati demonizing. No, it's just coup in America to put a kingdom over the Constitution. And so the Smiths, being of the York rights, did you know that? Not 1842, we're talking 1826. Smith Sr. was a Master Mason. And if you know anything about Masonry back then, Master Masons, if you read the book attributed to William Morgan, which was not the book he was writing, but it was the book that the Batavian Press, David Miller, tried to recoup some of his losses financially. That book illustrates that the one who does the rituals, performs the rituals for the initiates, is the Master Mason of the lodge. So the Master Mason is necessary for a lodge to perform the rituals of the initiation rites of those who become members and rise up in the ranks. And so, like in the Mormon temples, you have the temple worker who officiates, and he plays different roles, whether it's Peter or whether it's Elohim or whatever. The Master Mason plays that role in the Mason temples. And the highest rank in the York Rites is the Knights Templar. Now, the Knights Templar have also been infiltrated by the Illuminati. South America, or Central America, there's, I think it's Colombia. There's a cartel down there calling themselves the Knights Templar. And so, yeah, they're a criminal organization. So they've obviously been infiltrated and corrupted. But the Knights Templar of the York Rites was claiming the original Knights Templar, where we get Friday the 13th from, and that's because the Knights Templar were originally the security guards for the pilgrimage to Jerusalem, back when Christians controlled Jerusalem. Then the invasion took over and Christians lost Jerusalem, and the Knights Templar lost also. And so then you have the Crusades and all that stuff, but the Knights Templar got so rich because they not only were security guards, they had sheep for clothing and for food, and so yeah, they were the merchants, and everybody bought through them, and so they got very rich and powerful as an organization, and that threatened the Catholic Church, and so thus the Catholic Church condemned the Knights Templar, also with the justification that the Knights Templar were involved with Egyptian documents. And it's believed that when the Knights Templar first went under the Temple Mount, they obtained something, and they're not really sure what it is, but that's how they got into a position of power to be merchants. Was because of whatever they found in the archaeological evidence underneath Solomon's Temple, and so yeah, That's how they rose to prominence. But they had Egyptian documents. And we know this from Little Egypt in southern Illinois. The X marks the spot for the two solar eclipses over the United States. One back in 2017, the other in 2024. Not a coincidence. They knew astronomy, and so that's why they wanted to found the New Jerusalem, because Jerusalem had already been conquered, so they wanted to found the New Jerusalem. The solar eclipses corresponded with John the Revelator, and so they came to America way back in the 1300s, long before Christopher Columbus, and bought the land from the Indians, the Mandan tribe, which William Morgan knew about, and so Little Egypt in southern Illinois was the cave of buried plates. Remember Joseph Smith talking about seeing a cave with plates filled up throughout it? Yeah. And him digging for buried treasure? Yeah, that's all Knights Templar stuff. That has nothing to do with Mormonism, magic, and the worldview, as D. Michael Quinn wants to call it. It has nothing to do with magic. It's all about the Knights Templar, because the Smiths were in the Knights Templar. They knew about all this stories of the Knights Templar in America. And that's where it all comes from. It has nothing to do with magic and witchcraft. And so the Smiths were aware of New Jerusalem in America, and therefore they were wanting to promote it, but William Morgan needed to be helped and rescued and snuck out of the country. And Smith Sr., as the Master Mason, all things have to go and be approved by him, because William Morgan was in jail in his area for his lodge, and so Smith Sr. was in charge of having him snuck out of the country. That's just the way it is, because in the book Illustrations of Masonry, that's what it talks about. The Mason is the guy over the lodge, and it talks about in the initiation rites for Master Masons of how Master Masons are supposed to be helped. If they're poor, if he dies, the widows get taken care of, the orphan children get taken care of by the other Masons. And that's why Smith Sr. Got the farm and was given financial help, was because he became a Master Mason. And the Scottish Rites, they were the ones who were going to be infiltrated by this Illuminati organization. And the Scottish Rites were then going to be the group in America to rise into power, into government, and eventually take over the throne of America in the presidency, and turn America into a monarchy. And this Smith Sr., orchestrating the whole event to get William Morgan to safety, resulted in the anti-Mason movement and forced the Scottish Rites Masons to refigure their plot, and that's where Brigham Young comes in. Brigham Young came from a family of Scottish Rites Masons. They were in on it, the plot to destroy America. And Heber C. Kimball best buddies lived with them, or in the neighborhood, and Heber was a master mason himself. And so, yeah, when the anti-Masonic movement occurred, their lodges, their temples, were also destroyed, and they weren't happy. So when they join Joseph's church, as he calls it a church, rather than a Masonic lodge, he's wanting to build a temple immediately so that he can pass on information to the priesthood through the temples. He wants to build up an army to go up against the Illuminati, who had to regroup and reorganize to go and put a king on the throne of America. And so Joseph Smith tried to put his replacement on the throne of America. And to battle. I'm winging it here, so I'm not reading from a script. He wanted to counter the Illuminati threat to put a king on the throne. And thus he ran for president himself in the year he died. But Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball, being of that group that wants to destroy America and put a king on the throne, recruited into the new organization Scottish Rites persons. And they formed the Danites within the church. And so Joseph Smith was unaware of this secret organization within his church. He, I guess, believed that the 1826 anti-Masonic movement stopped the infiltration into Scottish Rites. I don't know. But for some reason he allowed Scottish Rites members into the church, and the Book of Mormon being encoded with a warning message about the threat to America to put a king on the throne. And so with Brigham Young's murdering of Joseph Smith, he then takes a group of people of the Danites and those who he extorts, telling women, hey, be married to me and we'll take care of you. And so, yeah, women had no choice but to go along with it, and thus the women were married to Joseph Smith after he died, and Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball and all of the Danite elite, so that the women would be taken care of. So it was sort of a hostage taking that went on, and so Brigham Young founded his Kingdom of Deseret in the Salt Lake Valley. Kingdom. He became a king and fought the Indians to establish his kingdom, and he became the threat. He was the threat. He infiltrated Joseph's organization, which was the main cause for his plot to take over America. And he, in turn, founded his own kingdom, which is exactly the threat to America. So, yeah, it's all out in the open if you just step back out of your box and go, oh my God. And so the United States then comes in and says, no, you can't have a kingdom. You're dethroned. And he's made a governor instead, but then can't be trusted to be governor, so the United States again removes him from the governorship for life, and so he's just a religious leader. But as you all know from the temple, with the law of consecration covenant, you give loyalty to the church and kingdom. They still are pursuing a kingdom. And so now we get to our modern day with Russia having the seal of the Scottish Rites Masons of the Two Eagles. And remember, a temple to be announced, or a temple to be built in a major city in Russia. Remember that conference, boys and girls, brothers and sisters, and yeah, Scottish Rites. The church is still trying to establish the kingdom, and with Russia, they're working in conjunction with Russia to take over America, and have put certain people in key places as best as they can, and tried to get uranium for Russia with the Bears Ears. Yeah. And now Governor Huntsman, who was the Russian ambassador of the U.S., is now wanting to run for governor. I wonder what he's going to want to do for Russia. You know, he's going to get that uranium deal processed so that Russia can get their uranium from us. But again, Trump is getting impeached. And who is Trump? He declared himself king, as his lawyers are fighting in the courts saying that Trump is a king. He can't be prosecuted, he can't be investigated, he can't be touched. Huh. So here we are. Scottish Rites, through Russia this time, is using agents through the Republican Party to take over America and establish a king on the throne, which they succeeded. And now we're having to deal with the nightmare that King Mosiah warned about. Don't put a king on the throne. He will protect himself. He will make everybody corrupt. He will take everybody down who goes up against him. And yet we Mormons grew up thinking, oh, we're going to save America and protect the Constitution. And instead, we have an organization that is compliant with taking over America and establishing Trump as king. And why are they doing it? Not just for a temple in Russia, but Russia wants to destroy America. And so the church would have made a deal to restore their kingdom again here in Utah. When America is destroyed, they probably got a promise from Putin, yeah, we'll let you have a kingdom. Help us destroy America, we'll let you have a kingdom, we'll even let you have your temple in Russia. This is the nightmare we're living in, people. This is the corruption of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The Scottish Rites version, not the York Rites version of the Smiths, who founded the organization to protect and defend America from all enemies, foreign and domestic. So this video went a little long. Wah. That's the danger we're in. And what else is there to say?